Ladies and gentlemen, it is good to be back for another episode of Jake Builds Gunpla. It's been well over a year since I've streamed, and I'm really excited to get back to it. I also took a break from building Gunpla. I've built only a handful of kits over the past year. Life's just been crazy, you know how it goes. But the Gundam dog and I are back at it, so let's have some fun. Today we're going to be building this kit here. This is the ZAKUIIF2 Earth Federation Space Force variant. I love Zaku kits. I love grunt kits in general, but especially the Zakus. They're just so iconic. It's my favorite mecha design in all of mecha anime. And there are some fantastic designs, even just focusing on the Gundam franchise. There's so many great suits. But for me, this just encapsulates the perfect mecha design. It's utilitarian, but it's also frightening and menacing with that one mono eye just like glaring down. Such a sweet design. And this is the variation used by the good guys of the show, essentially. Because this was made for primarily the Principality of Zeon, the bad guys of the show. And this version was used by the hero forces, so it has a different paint scheme, which that Stormtrooper black and white look, just so good. So I'm really excited to build this, and thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoy the build process. Now, you can tell this is a bit of an older kit, as all of the instructions are still in Japanese. Most of the ones that they sell stateside now have pretty good English translations in the instruction booklet. This one does not. That being said, it's still super easy to follow along with one of these kits. If you've never built one, everything is labeled very easily to read, so shouldn't have an issue. Looks like we're actually going to start with the chest piece. Let's see. Need an A3 and then some polycaps. Polycaps are pretty interesting. When they came out, they were mixed reviews amongst the Gunpla community. For this size of a kit, the 1 and 1/44 scale, absolutely fine. I see no issues with them whatsoever. They really do give the smaller kits like this quite a bit of mobility. And posability. And of course, with the bigger kits, the polycaps, which they did some with bigger kits, didn't work great. There's just not enough friction there when your model is holding so much weight down. But for these smaller guys, they work just fine. Need 2 4s and a number 8. So a lot of these polycap sheets, they'll print this same sheet and put them in a ton of different kits. So you'll have leftovers, and that's fine because they're useful to have around. Just don't get don't get any alcohol on these guys because it will dry them right up. So let's do a little bit of trimming here. Although I have better side nippers, I still go back to these guys. I've built a lot of kits with these. They're the official Bandai entry-level ones, and they're very simple. They don't have any special features to them, but they work. They're reliable. And they're comfortable to use, too. That's the smaller size, which I like. It gives you a little more control. Just cleaning up where we used our side cutter with a safety blade. And I am by no means perfect at this at all. But it is highly enjoyable nonetheless. Get this guy cleaned up nice and smooth. Yeah, the issue with some of these darker colors is that if you're not careful, you will leave very, very visible cut marks. Just from the stress on the plastic of the side cutters, or if you scrape them the wrong way, the stress on the plastic really jumps out with the darker colors. So I always just take our time. You'll see a lot of people use sandpaper or sanding sticks to really blend everything in. It's a bit overkill for me. If I was building a perfect grade or a real grade, then sure, I would take the extra steps. But for these high grade kits, I think just a nice pair of nippers and a nice sharp safety blade is plenty good enough. Well, all right, so polycap 8 goes in sideways. That's going to be where our waist connects to the chest point. There we go. Then our 2 polycap number 4s. Which are going to be the joint where the shoulder mates up to the chest. There we go. Beautiful. All right, so next up we have A32, A14, and A13. This is also pretty common in a lot of Gunpla kits to see mirrored parts. So these go on the sides of the chest piece. One on the left and one on the right. Here's number 32, which goes on top of the chest piece. It's kind of like the base on the top where the neck will eventually rest. I normally spend about an hour to maybe an hour and a half per session. It can take more than that to build these, certainly, and there are people who can rush this size kit and get these out in less than an hour. But I really like to just take my time. It's very much a nice, relaxing, zen sort of thing for me. Just trimming up these nubs here. Taking our time and making sure all the cuts are nice and clean. Even something like this, where you wouldn't see this once it's assembled, it could actually cause just enough interference so that it doesn't fit snug. And that you will see. Just getting nice and close with the side nippers here. As close as we can without cutting into the actual structure. And that way it won't give us any stress marks. Absolutely. Give yourself enough time to enjoy it, but not burn out on the process. I have another kit that is a perfect grade kit. And that kit, it took me about 2.5 hours just to build the head of it. It's a massive kit. When it's done, it's a little over 2 feet tall. And that's a long process build. That's not something to work on in one setting. It's a beautiful kit, though. There's not a ton of perfect grades out there. And the one that I have is the old school ZAKUIIF2 kit, which released, I believe, in 1996 and has not been changed at all since. So it has definitely some old school techniques you have to do. Like for the wiring and the electronics in the head, it's a funky sort of pathway to connect the battery to the little LED light in there using springs. Whereas a modern kit is just going to have a nice, simple, all-in-one LED module that just plugs right in. All right, so put our side pieces on. These guys are nice and snug, too. That's a good fit. I want to trim this one up a little better. This really is a great hobby, and I've been into model building since I was a kid. And seeing the growth of Gunpla over the past, I'd say like 5 years, has been fantastic. You can go into a Target now, and they have a relatively good size Gunpla section. When I was a kid, you never would have seen that. You had to go to like a specialty store to find these. And of course, with the internet now, a lot of the exclusive kits, you can get those online, shipped right to you. I have a really neat Zaku kit that is bright pink, and it was a exclusive from the Gundam base store in Japan. Definitely one of the highlights of my collection. Then this neck piece just clips right in. There we go. So our chest piece is turning out pretty good so far. What's nice about this with the dark color schemes together is I'm not going to have to do a lot of panel lining on here. Just the contrast to the parts brings out a lot of that detail, which is really nice. Alright, so we need to go to runner C, and we need number 4 and 5. So we're working on the waist now. Another way you can tell this is an older kit is that the instructions aren't split apart in the same manner as the newer kits. Where the newer kit, it says this is the head, and it breaks down that whole assembly. And then this is the chest with that assembly. This, you just get the step-by-step directions. And we need a polycap number 1. So we'll get these edges cleaned up. All right, thank you. I appreciate you stopping by for the chat. So we'll get these cleaned up. You gotta be nice and easy and careful with these because you don't want to impale yourself, which I've done quite a few times. You eventually get the feel for it and really learn, like, okay, when is this plastic going to give way? Or if you need to stop, reposition your knife and get a cleaner angle in there for a better cut. All right, that's looking good, so we'll work on this one next. This is pretty common in a lot of these kits where the waist joint is actually molded into the piece itself. And some of the newer kits, it's actually a polycap, and you press down the part on top of the waist. All right, so we have this will go down here. The angled side facing upward. There we go. All right, looking good. Ooh, that was a satisfying click. That was nice. So that's it for that step. And now we're going to start working on the back side of the waist. So we're going to need polycap number 10. And C number 7. This will be the back part of his sort of skirt armor, I guess you could call it. I know that section of armor has an actual name historically. Clean those up. Yeah, this is looking nice. Not a ton of detail on this piece, but I think it has another piece that eventually goes on back of it. Alright, so we have a number 10 here. Number 10 polycaps can be very tricky because they have a hollow, they're a square that's hollow in the middle. And if you don't put them in just the right way, when you go to slide something into that square to the hollow section in the middle, it can be overcompressed and not particularly easy to line up. That's why we take our time. Make sure everything looks nice and kosher. There we go. These are meant to pivot. Eventually the sides of the armor skirt will slide into there, and then they will pivot so that the figure has more flexibility and posability. So one of these went in very nice. The others being a little tricky. There we go. Yeah, if you don't get those polycap 10s lined up just right, they make the rest of the installation a pain. So now we've got the side skirts to start going on. Number 8 and number 9. So with these curved parts, you definitely have to be extra careful when you're snipping them off of the runner. When the nub is actually inside that curve. It also makes trimming them up a little bit trickier. I have to do a couple passes. Just really blend it in to the line of the part. It's very easy to overcut with nubs like this. And this being a main detail part that's right on the outside, if you do overcut or leave too much of a nub sticking out, you're definitely going to notice it. All right, that looks pretty good. Yeah, some of these nubs just fall right off with the smallest bit of pressure. You need to be prepared for that so that you don't gouge into the material that's behind there or run it into your hand. And then we need C number 2, which is going to go on the front section of our waist. These ones here can be tricky because there's a lot of blank space leading up to them. If you're not careful, you can cut into that blank space and it will jump right out. But when you're dealing with small plastic parts that you're trimming away, it's not always easy to get a good hold on them. This one wasn't too bad, though. Alrighty, so this guy just goes right in the front. Has an interesting design, but it does work pretty well. Now, I've also noticed that there's a little bit of what we call flashing, which is where when the part was molded, there's just a little bit of extra material on the edge. So we're just going to clean that up real quick. Much better. Taking your time and cleaning that stuff up really makes a big difference. This is where things can get a little tricky. So this is going into that hollow space in the polycap number 10. She is fighting it. Oof. Let's try the other side first. See if we have any better results on here. Well, this one went in pretty smooth, actually. That one lined up very nice very quickly. This one's giving us a hard time. Let's try that again. There we go. That's better. Alright, so now our side armor is looking good. Now we get to do some tubular building. So we're going to need C number 3. This is another one where the post on the runner actually cut into the curve, so you have to be careful. Then we're going to need A23 and A22. Oh no. Fell right off the runner holder, which is fine. There we go. Much better. So let's get this part cleaned up first. Just follow that curve and clean that nub off without cutting off any extra material or leaving any nasty trails of plastic slivers almost. There we go. That's looking good. And one more on the top here. Not bad at all. So A22, this is fun. I haven't seen one of these in a while. You have to actually bend the part. It's always a little nerve-wracking. So this is A22. So that should slide into here. These are cut away like a T, so it makes it easier to slide. But I've got a little more to trim here, so let's do that. So this part here is actually, it's a sort of rubbery sort of part, and it's not the easiest to trim up, but it does look nice when it's all said and done. Okay. That should go in that way, which is the wrong way, so it's going to be, let's look here. So it's going to go this way. There we go. That's going to slide in there. I'm going to trim this one up now. This part's always nerve-wracking because you have to bend the actual rubberized parts here. Alright, that's looking good. So then that should slide in just like that. Beautiful. Those are both all the way forward. We're going to bend these at this second junction here to give us an angle. And the same here. Okay, so we have our breathing tubes set. Oxygen tubes. And then those are going to mount to C number 6. So we'll get this all trimmed up and see how she looks. Yeah, some of these nubs just fall right off. All right, looking good. This guy goes in the front like that. That looks good. Then that will slide into there. Alrighty. So our waist is looking pretty good so far. And there is a surprising amount of detail, especially like on the side skirts. You can really see some nice detail there. Our Gundam dog has joined us. What are you doing? Are you having a good time? You gonna help build? Yeah, you're a good boy. So with that set, our next step is to attach the waist to the chest. I do prefer that where it's the molded joint connecting the waist to the chest. You don't get a ton. You get some forward and back. It's not bad. You get a bit of movement there. You get way more with some of the newer kits that use a polycap for that. But that is such a satisfying connection. And not a ton of left or right either, but this is kind of a bulky kick anyway, so. Now we need polycap number 6, which is going to be our neck joint. There we go. That one really sits down in there. You don't have a ton of wiggle room for alignment, but I can get my tweezers in here and tweak it just a hair. There we go. Straighten it out just a little bit. Not bad. Now we need C number 10, and we need 2 of those. And that's going to connect the oxygen tubes to the side. There we go. So now we'll clean these nubs up. So gotta be nice and careful that we don't cut ourselves here. There we go. If possible, you always try to cut away from you. Alright, that one looks good. Let's take a look at this guy. A little bit of real fine work there. Sometimes I'll use my nail as a stopper. And that way if the blade goes through, it's just going to crash into my nail. Here. Really fine work right there. That's good. Nice. Beautiful. So these go here, angled side down. And that connects the oxygen tube to the side skirts, which is a pretty nice way of doing it. That worked out really well, actually. Let's see if my camera will focus. Come on. You can see how they go in. Alright, and now we're going to be working on our backpack attachment, which will also secure the oxygen tubes to the back. So we're going to need A6 and A31. And there's 6. And let's find 31. Here it is. It's starting to be fall time here in New England. And I absolutely love the fall. The leaves changing. Oh, absolutely beautiful. Then later in the season, when you start getting that nice, crisp, cool weather, and it's finally cold enough to wear your favorite hoodie, oh, perfect. Have some nice pumpkin spice coffees or teas or pumpkin spice everything, honestly. I had pumpkin spice bagels the other day. Yeah, pumpkin spice bagels. Oh, so good. Truly is the best flavor of New England. Alright, that's looking good. Trim this one up next. This is one we have to be careful with because the nubs are really on two surfaces. They're on a flat part here and on the flat part here on the other side of that angle. We'll get those trimmed up and looking good. Nice. All right, so this is where the thrusters are going to go in his backpack unit. We need 2 polycaps and then 2 section Ds. Two polycaps. Ooh, it is raining out there. Something fierce. Nice. We have desperately needed rain. Been in a drought for a while. And I absolutely love the sound of the rain. Super peaceful. These are some pretty boring looking thrusters. Not too much detail on them. Thruster 1 is done. The outside of these thrusters is very basic. There's no detail on the outside at all. Which most of the newer kits, they give the outside of the thrusters a little bit of detail, even if it's just lines going all the way down. All right, that is looking good. So the thruster cap just mates up to the poly cap. Then you have a little posable thruster. It's gonna go like that, which looks nice. And make sure that our oxygen tubes are placed right. And there we go. So there's still quite a bit of mobility in there. What's nice is it gives us room so that we can pose it and the tubes can move with the chest piece as it rotates. And these just pop in here. You get a good amount of posability, but I'm not too concerned about the thrusters. It is a convenient way to get them in there, though. So that's how our back is looking currently. See the little thrusters down there. Come on, camera, focus. This has been a fun little build so far. Nice and low key. Just how I enjoy it. So I think we're going to finish this session up here by building the head. Now we get a couple options with this kit, which is really nice, for which sort of head we want to use. There's a completely smooth dome, which is just like the standard grunt unit. There's a unit that has extra armor on the front, and then there's the unit with a single antenna. That's the commander unit, and that's what we're going to be using. It's also, I think it just looks the coolest. So we're going to need A26 and B23. Maybe. Come on. B23. So let's get these guys cleaned up. This is always a little nerve-wracking because the entire part is curved. So you really gotta take your time and just go with the flow so that you match that line of the curve and you don't dig too far into there, or it's gonna leave a very visible deviation. That looks good though. And this is going to be a nice easy trim here. This is made out of the more rubbery material, so it's much more forgiving in certain aspects. That looks good. That's going to sit down in there. Now we need B21 and A1. A1 is going to be where our mono eye goes. B21. Just take our time cutting that one off the runner because it's very, very short post. This is a nice kit though. I haven't built a older high grade in a while. And I have a soft spot for these kind of slightly older but not, you know, vintage kits. This is kind of similar to what I grew up with. Nice. Just take our time. All right, that looks good. So we'll trim up our mono eye section. We also have our first sticker to apply. I really like the way the engineers got the mono eye to move on these smaller high grade kits because it's ingenious. It's so simple and it works very well. So we're going to put that iconic pink mono eye right onto here. And there's a nice little spot on the plastic piece where it lines up. Looks nice and centered, so we'll just put some pressure around it. And we should be good to go. Nice. Our mono eye will drop down into there. And now we get to decide which head unit we're going to use. So we're going to do the commander. So we need B14 and B22. There's 22. And 14. So let's get those trimmed up. Looking good. This is another one of those areas where if you overcut or undercut, boy howdy, you are gonna notice. That looks good though. As does that. Put our antenna on. Oh, that looks so cool. Then lastly is this little front breather piece. Which is directional, so we got to be careful to line that up right. And there we go. Now we have a lovely ZAKUIIF2 head fully assembled. That gorgeous pink mono eye. This thing's pretty cool. There's actually a little bit of detail in that front breather vent. So the last thing I'm going to do for the evening is do a little panel lining. So I'm going to go through with this special marker. Just hit the details on those vents. Then when it dries, I'll go through with a Q-tip and clean it up a little bit. It's got a little bit of detail in the back here too, so we'll hit that. That looks good there. And this little square here. Nice, sleek looking unit. I think for good measure, we might even just paint a line around here. Yeah, that's gonna look nice. So you should be able to see now quite a bit of, little bit more detail there. Doesn't want to focus. But we've got some nice coloration on the inside where it had breathing fins, and it really does just bring out all the detail that's in the mold of the kit that otherwise you just don't see if you don't take the time to panel line. So we're going to do the same here on the skirt section. It just brings that detail right out. You can get these markers in a variety of colors. I typically use the black and the gray the most. Little detail down front. Right across the sides here. Nice. You do have to be careful because certain Gundam parts are made of various materials. And if you use these alcohol-based Gundam markers on the wrong material, you will be in for a very bad time. It'll cause the plastic to become very dry and very brittle. And then as soon as you go to move it, you end up breaking the part. That is looking pretty good, though. I'll throw a little detail down in here. That looks good. Alrighty. So I think that is where we are going to end tonight's build progress. We have our chest piece done, our waist section done, and we have our head done. So I'm going to let the Gundam marker dry, and then I'll clean that up with a cotton swab. And then we'll be back at it again shortly, and we'll work on building some arms and legs. We'll probably do that all in the next video, and then we'll have a fully assembled kit. So everyone who watched, thank you so much for following and for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Take care.